Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv. Wolok. My partner in crime is always Vasili, Gianarakos. Vasili, what's going on, bro? In the dead of summer, dead of hockey summer, for sure. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Obviously, hump day here for anybody listening. Well, actually, technically, it's Thursday, so we're almost at the
Well, they'll
weekend.
get it Wednesday night. They'll get it Wednesday night.
That's true. Yeah, a little bit of listening on a Wednesday night, maybe for some. But yeah, I'm doing good. Obviously, I think not a lot to talk about for the Flyers, but we still have an episode. We're still gonna, get into some good discussion. I'm just happy the weather's been nice here in Ontario, like 25 sunny this past week.
Translate that
So
for our American audience. What is that,
like 80,
80s?
81,
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Sunny. Perfect.
That is perfect. In Philly, we're at 100 degrees. What is that, like 37 degrees Celsius, something like
Something
that,
like that.
38?
Yeah.
Um,
Humidity or what?
a little bit, but not too bad. It's just hot.
Fair.
It's
Yeah,
just
we were
hot.
just coming off like a heat wave here where it was like super humid last week and now it's kind of toned
Yeah.
down. So I'm like, let's go. This is
I
what we need.
I'll be honest with you, dude. I don't mind it. I love hot weather.
I love the heat. Yeah.
Yeah,
I even though I love hockey, I'm not a winter person. Like I love
same,
being on the ice, but
same.
I'm not a fan of like Canadian winter,
Uh,
especially with the, negative 20s and the 30 centimeters of snow.
yeah. Oh,
What?
forget
Yeah,
it.
not
Yeah, yours
ideal.
is even worse than ours. But like, I think part of the reason I fell in love with hockey is that like it is my favorite thing about winter. Like
Oh,
I
of
hate
course.
winter, but I love hockey. So it like balances it out where like summertime I'm not really watching sports, you
Yeah, I'm the
know?
same way. I'm the same way. Like, I'm not really a big baseball guy, so I'll start watching
Yeah.
NFL here just in the preseason a little bit as we start
Yeah.
off. But it's kind of dead right now, just in terms of like any sports other than MLB. So I'm
Yeah.
excited, at least for September to roll around and get some hockey back. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's the caveat, I guess. Like, you're in the dead of winter, super cold, shitty weather out, but you
But
get a
yeah,
ton of
hockey
hockey
like
games every night
every
to
other
keep you
night.
going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've been watching the Phils, but I'm not like they're maybe the least interesting sport to me of the major four.
Fair, yeah.
Um,
I
so
mean I keep tabs on the Blue Jays. Like they're doing really well actually. They're first in the
yeah,
AL
yeah,
East,
yeah.
but it's funny because I bet on the Blue Jays maybe like a week ago and everybody's like, "Oh, they're doing so well. They're doing so well." And the game that I bet on them, they lost 11-4. So I'm like,
Oh,
"Okay, I will not be betting on
oh yeah,
baseball
so
anymore."
stay out of that one from now on.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
fair enough.
Put like a $2 bet. I'm like, "Oh, the Blue Jays are winning. Sure, let's try
Well,
this."
if you're not putting that much money, it's irrelevant.
No, I was kind of just fucking around. So
Yeah,
I was just
yeah.
like, "Okay."
Fair enough. All right, let's get into the usual spiel here. Just so you guys are aware, something to look forward to. Next episode will be with the infamous Jim Jackson. We tried to get him on earlier in the summer, but it was a little tough scheduling wise. So now we got him coming in next Monday, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it next Monday? Yeah, yeah. Or this upcoming Monday or whatever. So yeah, we'll have Jim on. We're probably going to repeat topics that we've talked about already, but we're going for his opinion here, not so much ours. And Jim is awesome, friend of the show. Obviously, the man knows how to talk. He's been doing it his entire career. So I'm really looking forward to having Jim back on.
Yeah, it's
Should
gonna be
be,
fun.
yeah, it's gonna be a good one. So look forward to that one next week. And then we're gonna work on some other guests for the summer. And then a reminder that Vasily leaves. What is it? The 13th?
13th. Yeah,
13th, right?
13th of
Yeah.
August.
So you might be able to do an episode with me. If not, I'll probably run solo on majority of those. But there's not gonna be that much to talk about anyway. And I have no problem just brainstorming in front of our audience. So that'll be cool no matter what. Okay, let's get into it. Just want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for notifications. Get notified when we release these episodes. And for the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes and do the same. Give us a rating and a follow as well. That is the best way to support this show. For those of you who have done that, thank you all so much. For those of you who have not done that, please, please, we kindly ask that you do. We definitely track that stuff, and it keeps us motivated and going. So Thank you. Also, shout out to our sponsors, Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Make sure to go get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim's. They have one of the best, if not the best, cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Make sure to go to 4th and South to get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim's Steaks. Also, Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Go to them for your insurance adjustment needs. They will help facilitate the process between you and your insurance company and make sure you get the best claim possible and help you deal with all the headaches that come dealing with insurance companies. Again, Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. And also want to give a brief shout out to our partner, SportsSpider.com. Guys, if you're tired of searching multiple websites for sports news, SportsSpider.com has you covered. They collect the latest articles, videos, and podcasts from around the web and organize them by your favorite teams. If you want to stay as up to date on our Philadelphia Flyers or the NHL in general, make sure to check out SportsSpider.com. The link is in the description of both the audio and video versions of this show. Again, sportspider.com. Our stuff is pinned at the top. All right. Let's get into the news. Most of it is old news, but we're going to go through it and give our takes anyway. We're going to talk a lot about young guys today, but we'll get the big, ugly, nasty one out of the way. We have not talked about Carter Hart for quite a bit. We might have referenced him a little bit, but we obviously just kind of sat back and waited for something to happen. So, as of, I think it was last week at this point, I already forget the exact date, but all 5 players have been acquitted that were part of the Hockey Canada ordeal with the sexual assault charges. So all of them beat that in court. So now comes the mess that happens afterwards where nobody really knows what's going to happen with these guys. So as of right now, the NHL did announce that all 5 players are ineligible to play in the NHL, but let's just get this out of the way. That will probably not stay to some degree. As of right now, the NHLPA is going to fight for these players to be in the league. Again, that's what they are set up for, is to fight for the players, and all 5 of these guys are represented by the NHLPA. They've all been drafted and have had NHL playing time. So as of right now, we really don't know what's going to happen. Just my opinion, for those who are waiting for Carter Hart to come back, even if he is eligible to come back, I would not anticipate he's going to come back to be a Philadelphia Flyers. I would imagine most of these guys will look to start over, where they're less known in whatever city they go to, just because of the reputation, assuming that they will be allowed back into the NHL. And I'll also say this, is that I fully expect them to be back in the NHL. I've said that many a times, for those who have been listening to the show for a while, that if they were acquitted and they were found not guilty, then they would find their way back into the league. And I think it honestly makes sense, considering you were accused of something you were found not guilty of in a court of law. So I do think that does earn them the ability to get their job back. And they are also not repeat offenders. I think Vasili is going to talk about a different event that maybe we can reference. All right, before we get into more opinion, Vasili, I'll open up to you first about your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Cal Foote, Formanton, Michael McLeod, Dylan Dubé, Carter Hart, all acquitted. They are not charged for this sexual assault. That went to court and kind of was a very long and drawn out process. I do want to bring forth some quotes. So this is from an article from the CBC in Canada, from Karen Paul. So this is about Carter Hart specifically.
Okay.
Essentially, the article states that when Hart testified in his own defense, it appeared to be the first step in the rehabilitation of his career. Hart's lawyer said her client had been willing to participate in a restorative justice process instead of a criminal trial. She explicitly stated he was willing to be publicly named and prepared to use his public platform to teach other athletes about how to ensure that their sexual encounters are responsible and thoughtful, Megan Safard said to the media outside the courthouse after Justice Maria Caroccia handed down her decisions. She also stated Mr. Hart regrets that it took a criminal trial for the truth to come out, but he has learned from the experience and he's committing to sharing what he learned with others in his personal circle and professional life. So I thought that was really interesting to mention. Another thing to note, right, is that the NHL has deemed these individuals ineligible currently to play. I believe what they stated explicitly is that um, they were reviewing what was occurring essentially. And based on their review, they found obviously the findings and what happened to be kind of like an abomination, and they were not obviously condoning what these five players did. So that's why they're making them ineligible. Um, Whereas the NHLPA, obviously, who represents the players, after the NHL put that statement forward, essentially stated that since the players have been found not guilty, they should now have the opportunity to return to work. So the way I look at it really is they're found not guilty. No matter what you think about the situation, that is the decree that was handed down. I think the way and what happened in the situation, it's something that these guys probably shouldn't have put themselves into, like in the first place. They probably shouldn't have ended up in that situation and
Definitely.
done any of that stuff. What they did do, in my opinion, it is a little bit disturbing. And that's my assessment of it. And I agree with the NHL to kind of call it disturbing to end up in that whole situation in general. But in terms of criminality, there's no criminal act found. So if you look at it from like a strictly legal standpoint, the NHLPA is going to look to protect its players and do what's best for its players. So if the NHL eventually doesn't let these guys return, the NHLPA is probably going to bring something up on the behalf of these players, or the players might sue the NHL in some sort of way, right? Because they were found not guilty here. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, like they were deemed ineligible. I do have another quote here from Frank Saravalli that I thought was interesting. I wanted to bring up too. Let me just find it here. Sorry, guys. Uh, One sec here. Sorry about that. Yeah, so Sarah Valley said, I was told Carter Hart is a non-starter for the Oilers right now, and beyond that, he's a non-starter for everyone right now. Until they are cleared to play, it's not even a conversation worth having.
Sure.
So, yeah, like really, these guys won't be the topic of conversation for teams until they're clear. But I imagine at some point, if they are not cleared, they're going to try to pursue legal action, right? Because what technically would be the reasoning if they are not criminally guilty, even though what they did was disturbing? In a criminal court of law, they were not found guilty. So it just is what it is when you look
Yeah.
at the facts of it, right?
Yeah, I would say the NHL, while they take this stance, it's kind of bullshit. I'll explain myself why. Regardless of where you stand with this, morally and ethically, ethically, I am not with this, right? Like I agree with Vasili. Like this is not good behavior on anybody's part. Having said that, you look at the age of the players that are involved and the alleged victim in the trial as well. I'm not sure exactly how to refer to her at this point because they were found not guilty. But um, you know, this is not an uncommon thing to happen with star athletes. It's unfortunate, but this stuff happens. I mean, I can tell you, I know I know many stories. I mean, I lived with D1 athletes in college. This stuff is unfortunately very common in the sports world. And you've seen other cases of, like Patrick Kane had his accusation that he beat in court. Obviously, he's back in the league. Nobody talks about that anymore, right? So there are lots of cases of these. So while it's easy to judge these guys for very stupid behavior, let's be honest, and probably should have never happened to begin with. It is not something that is unique to just these five guys. Maybe the story in the trial. And when you listen to a lot of people's opinion, this is a touchy subject for a lot of people. So you're going to get a lot of bias assumptions, even those who are trying to be unbiased. It's a very difficult thing to be unbiased with because everybody kind of has their side of it. So just kind of be aware of that. If we're going to talk about like strictly like legal, so Vasili said maybe there might be a lawsuit. I do agree with him as well. It would be a substantial lawsuit as well. I mean, if you look at Carter Hart alone, his value could be estimated anywhere around $80 million plus. And you collect all five players together, you're talking about a pretty substantial lawsuit against the NHL. And here's the position that is a problem for them, is the fact that they knew about this prior to them coming to the NHL. People can deny that, but we know that they were well aware that there was a situation between Hockey Canada and the accuser, right? They know there was a settlement case. they know that they were accused of something. They can say, "Oh, the details now kind of changed that." I mean, you knew something was going on before that, so it's going to be hard for you to say, "Oh, now that after this happened and it potentially damages our public image,
Yeah.
now we don't want it." So it's going to be very difficult for them, especially because there's outlier cases of other players, and even a guy like Michael Vick in the NFL's case, who came here and played in NHL. He was guilty of what he was convicted of, and still made it back into the NFL. Again, Kobe Bryant, another case where he was accused of rape, beat it in court, ended up obviously having many successful years in the NBA afterwards. So this is what I've been saying from day one. As long as they were charged not guilty, I do expect them, the more talented ones. I don't know if it'll be all five, but most
Yeah.
likely at least three of the five back in the NHL at some point. And I will repeat that I do not believe that Carter Hart will be coming back to the Flyers. Would I welcome him back? Yeah, probably. But I'm much more of like a sports guy. Like, I don't have as much emotion wrapped up in this as other people, some from experience, some, more close to home. I can understand any side of the option. And I don't even know if it's so much about the Flyers. I think it's so much about Carter Hart just being like, I just want to go start net new somewhere. And I would imagine most of those
Yeah.
players, assuming they'd be welcome back in.
Yeah, we will see what happens ultimately. Like, I think what the players did and how the NHL deemed it when they put their statement out and called them ineligible as disturbing and unacceptable. Like, I'm on the same page with that. Like, I think they shouldn't have even been in the situation to begin with. And the fact
Totally.
that
Very stupid.
they're doing that, it just shows to me poor judgment on all their parts
Absolutely.
tenfold. I think if we're talking about the legalities and the PR aspects of it, I think the NHL looks at it this way: they deem them ineligible. It's almost like an extra punishment. Maybe they sit out this whole year, for example, and
Possible.
things die down a lot, because you have to think about, if they sit out another
Totally.
full year, this is going to really get buried with all
Yeah.
the stories that come out in the NHL, and then maybe next off season these
Have a
guys find
different
a home.
discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, these guys find a home somewhere. We will see, but that's the way I look at it. I'd imagine no team wants to bring any of these guys in, at least to start this season or even halfway through the season, if they are allowed, just because of the PR shitstorm it's going to bring. They'd probably rather do it in an off season, and then you have that full off season after, even if they
To
do
let it die
sign
down.
them, let it die down, they come
Yeah.
back for the next season in training camp. So we'll see how it unfolds. The one guy I will mention from the MLB, if people aren't familiar, is Trevor Bauer. Signed
Yeah.
a very lucrative deal with the LA Dodgers. He was accused of sexual assault in many different cases. He beat all of the
You said
cases.
four, right?
I believe it was three or
That's
four. Yeah.
okay.
Something like that. But he beat all the cases. And then essentially after that, he's now playing in Japan. He was never brought back to the MLB. So there's always a case too where these guys just never are brought back to the NHL, because the NHL just does not want to deal with the PR and negative media that comes with signing one of these guys. So they end up potentially maybe going to the KHL or going to the European leagues and things like that. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I think at this point for the NHL, I wouldn't expect these guys back anytime soon whatsoever. So
Yeah. And interesting with Trevor Bauer, he actually won $310,000 in the sexual assault case, so even won money.
I guess
He's also
defamation.
he's also 34 now, so I
He's
don't
at the
know.
end of his career a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be part of the reason why he's not in the league. I do know this, that if you are talented enough, and you're going to lead to victories, unless you are criminally charged, and found guilty, typically you do find your way back in the league, especially in a case like this where it wasn't necessarily like, again, I can understand everybody's case in this, and I agree with Vasili. This is incredibly stupid by these guys. Like, let's be honest. I will give them the benefit of the doubt that they were 17, 18 years old, but incredibly stupid. Nothing I've ever done in my life or any of my best friends, but I have heard lots of stories like these over the years, unfortunately. This is also why I don't drink alcohol. I hate alcohol. So that, typically if you were a name brand player, they'll find a way to get you back in the league. I think Carter Hart really is the only guy who falls under that category of these
Yeah.
guys. Everybody else is
Probably.
like pretty good
I just think
NHL
about
players,
Evander
but
Kane. Like, remember the whole Evander Kane
yeah, what
situation?
was
What
going
happened
on
with
with
him?
him? Not the not when he faked his COVID ID. I know about
No,
that,
it was like
which
that.
was also stupid.
His thing was more like gambling. I don't know if he actually assaulted his ex-wife
Right,
either. That
yeah.
was legitimate or not. I'm not
But
sure.
but
But
Milan Lucic,
he ended up playing. So
yeah, Milan Lucic though, his career was over. I mean, he was already kind of towards the end also,
yeah.
which all that's what kind of makes it
Well,
tough. The guy can play.
that's another use case to think about, like with Lucic, right? Like that
Yeah.
happened to him. They were kind of just like hands off. We don't want to deal with it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and look, that might end up happening, but I usually find that, there's going to be a team out there that's going to be like, hey, I mean, especially when you look at the goaltending department and the fact that, like, if Carter Hart was a UFA this year, he would have been the number two UFA available behind Mitch Marner. Like,
yeah,
that's,
he would have been the number one goalie, obviously.
yeah, but I mean, none of the guys actually made it to UFA.
Yeah,
So, like,
yeah.
he probably would have been the top UFA available and would
Which
have
is
made
kind of
an
wild.
insane
Yeah.
amount of money. He probably would have got like a $9 million contract just because there's no goalies on that level that make it to UFA anymore. There aren't even
Yeah.
enough number one goalies in the league. Um, so yeah, my attitude is always to focus more on the sport and let the legal system, kind of divvy out what it needs to do. But I was listening to Steve Dangle podcast, and again, I really like that show. I like those guys, but you could tell like there's even though they're very professional when it comes to talking about that stuff, but you could hear it in their voice that like they obviously picked a side. They're like trying to talk about how it was the craziest trial they've ever seen and all. You're gonna hear that type of stuff. Like the reality is, it went through the legal system. It is what it is. We'll see what happens, but I don't think this is going to affect the Flyers. I'll make that clear. Just like when I was talking about the taxes thing, it's like I wasn't making that argument in favor of the Flyers. The Flyers are not even one of the most impacted
Yeah,
teams.
I
I
don't
don't
think if
think any of these guys are coming to the Flyers. Let's put it
I
that
don't
way.
think yeah, if Hart was going to return, I don't think it would be to the Flyers anyway. And I don't know if they would even want to kind of bring him in with the PR storm nonetheless.
Well,
So,
and that's the tough thing is that like Carter Hart is already well known in this city, right? So like it will be like, oh, the guy who was accused, won in court,
yes.
comes back versus like if he goes to a small market team where the average person doesn't even know who Carter Hart is, he might have that story behind him, but like nobody really knows, right?
Yeah,
Because
like if
there's
he
the
signed with the
Twitter,
Utah Mammoth or something,
right?
they're going to be like,
Exactly.
"Oh, okay."
And there's the Twitterverse where we're aware of every little thing going on with the team, and then there's the actual majority of the
Real
fan
world.
base,
Yeah.
which does it, or even like casual sports fan, they don't really know much about any of these guys, especially hockey. So he might opt for that, but we'll see what happens. I mean, the very least they can go play in Europe, right? Like outside of the country, and everybody knows that Russia won't have a problem with it. Let's be honest. If anything, they'll do it just for spite because of what's going on with, you know, the Russian Hockey Federation and the rest of the world. Okay, let's put that behind us. I don't really care. Our roster's pretty much set at this point. All right. Summer Showcase. So the World Junior Championship Summer Showcase has begun, and the Flyers are well represented with 7 players currently included. Jet Luchenko would have been the 8th, but he's dealing with a groin issue. And that would actually be the Flyers are the most represented in the summer showcase of all NHL teams, which is actually very cool to see. And that is also without Jack Nesbitt. And I want to talk about Jack Nesbitt real quick before we get to the actual players. Before I name them. So a lot of people are going to count that as like, oh, Jack Nesbitt didn't make Team Canada and all that. I personally don't think it's that big of a deal. And especially when you look at the way Canada has been making decisions of late and you look at the fact that the number 2 overall pick in this last draft didn't make their junior championship team. Like there is room to question their decision making. Zane Parekh being another guy who didn't make their team, which is like kind of a joke, and they didn't do very well as well. So I just thought that was interesting thing to note and just bring some I guess counterbalance. So a lot of people might be jumping on the fact that Jack Nesbitt didn't make the team. Overall, the players listed: Porter Martone, Team Canada; Spencer Gill, Team Canada, the former second round pick. Jack Murtaugh, last year's second round pick for Team USA. Shane Van Sage for Team USA as well. Jack Berglund for Team Sweden. Heikki Ruohonen for Team Finland. And Max Westgard for Team Finland as well. So obviously very well represented. And if Team Russia was included in this, I would imagine that Igor Zavragin would be included in that list as well, and probably would have been the starting goaltender for that squad. I don't even know if he'd need to try out, but probably would have been included on that list. So impressive list there. I'll also say real quick here, and then Vasili, I'll let you comment. I know you got a lot to say about this specifically. I know you've been keeping track. Porter Martone in a lot of lineups has been playing top left, top right wing position on the top line. I believe today he's playing with Gavin McKenna. Spencer Gill has been playing a bottom pairing role, so he's kind of more trying out for the team. Porter Martone is a definite on that team. Spencer Gill's trying to make the team. We'll see how he does moving forward. Jack Murtaugh is anywhere between the third and the fourth line at this point. I believe the most recent game he sat out, but prior to that, he played a fourth line left wing role. Shane Van Sage was playing a fourth line right wing role for Team USA. Jack Berglund has been playing top line center when fully in the lineup, which is very cool to see. Heikki Ruohonen has been playing top line center for Finland, and Max Westgard has been playing a third line role. And considering how young he is, also impressive. But interesting stuff. It's not going to be too much, but those who are not aware, this is really tryouts for the World Junior Championship.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
getting some of that. Go ahead, Vasili.
Pretty much, yeah. This tournament is basically a way that a lot of these feeder systems for these teams can look at the young guys and who
Yep.
might be a shoe-in for the World Juniors, right? So it's basically a tryout, like Yariv said. One guy I'll touch on, I think probably the one that everybody's most focused on, at least for the Flyers, is Porter Martone. He's had a pretty strong start, playing on the top line, as Yariv said, for Canada's red team. He essentially last game, he had a pretty high event game, so a lot of scoring chances. Had an assist on Michael Haig's goal, but also took a pretty hard hit in the second period. So that was a little, moment to be cautious about, but he did return, which is great, and he's out there again today. So hopefully another strong game for him for Canada. Spencer Gill also having a pretty strong start. He scored a goal
Nice one, yeah.
in July 29th game. And then also as well, he had some nice breakups in the D zone. He's denied some entries, so he's been looking good, especially for a guy that was a second round pick that people maybe weren't too sold on when the Flyers picked him. He's kind of been a guy that's slid and flew under the radar, but I think he's a guy that has size, mobility, and is a guy that it seems to be impressing at this camp. So he might be making a case for himself for the World Juniors, which would be really great for his development in general. And then, yeah, just a couple other guys to get into. Heikki Ruohonen's having a really strong tournament so far. 2 assists so far already. So he set up a really nice goal in the July 27th game. Even though Finland lost, he was able to deke around a defender, show his offensive instincts, make a nice pass. And then he also on the 28th in one of Finland's games was able to get an assist as well, and he's kind of been a real driver for Finland. So I'd expect him to basically stick in this top line role for them going into
Yeah.
the World Juniors,
I
which
think
is
he
really great.
played top 6 in
Yeah,
the
he played
championship.
second
Yeah,
line.
last
He
year.
played
Yeah.
second line last season in the World Juniors, so it only makes sense. Like there's certain guys graduating. He's going to be one of the older players. He's kind of going to be the guy that they're going to lean on for a
Yeah.
lot of big situations. But you think about development, right? That's exactly what you want to see. Like you want to see these guys that you picked, even though he was a fourth round pick, doesn't necessarily mean that he can't develop to be, a top 6 type of option. So the fact he's at a really high profile tournament, top line center, you're going to get those offensive, key offensive draws and minutes, those key defensive draws. He plays PK on the power play. So he's really going to get a chance to show his whole skill set at that tournament. So I'm pretty excited for that. And to your point, Berglund's pretty much doing the exact same thing with Sweden in a sense, right? Like he's playing on the top line as well. I'm assuming he's going to have a chance to potentially be, in a top line role for Sweden too. So it's going to be interesting.
I
And
think.
Berglund today,
Oh,
like
sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead. Go
Berglund
ahead.
today, he's been like also kind of just playing even better than
They
the prior.
they beat
Yes.
Canada today, 6-3.
Yeah, exactly. He's been playing better, as the tournament's been going along. So essentially, was able to get a goal and put them up 1-0, and also sets up a really nice goal as well for the 3-1 goal to put Sweden up. So,
And he
uh,
was also top six until getting injured in the World Junior Championship last year, I believe.
yeah, he
Yeah.
played a pretty big role for them. So
Yeah.
yeah, right now, I mean, the tournament's underway. There's a lot of Flyers prospects, as Yariv said. Some of them contributing pretty well. I'm just gonna pull up here some of the stats. So just looking at the stats right now for the tournament, James Hagens does lead the tournament with 5 points, which that's not too surprising. He's a really good player, obviously.
Yeah.
And then after him, you have Riker Lee, uh, Bjork, Cullen Potter at fourth, and then Berglund actually is fifth with 3 points so far, power play goal and 2 assists. So pretty cool to see Jack Berglund amongst the top 10 right now in tournament scoring.
It's interesting because I think Colin Potter is playing a bottom pairing role for Canada, so highly effective. Um, if I
Oh, for
am I, oh
US,
no,
you
no,
mean?
I'm sorry, I'm confusing him with Cameron Reed. He's playing bottom pairing role. Apologies. Uh, yeah, I did that last. It was the last episode with Jacob Peltier and Gabe Perot,
Perot.
where
Yeah,
I
all
still
good.
called him. I realized this later. I called him Jacob Perot, not
Yeah.
even Gabe Perot, so I got his name wrong the entire episode.
Yeah, and Ruohonen is 27th in scoring in the tournament. He's got just the 2 assists. So got a couple flyers in the top 30 at least.
Yeah,
And we'll see if Martone can kind of get more on the scoreboard as the
yeah.
games elapse as well.
I'm not disappointed that Luchenko is not there because I don't really care because one, I know he's gonna be on Team Canada or in the NHL, so I don't really care. I
I'm
am.
honestly I'm a little bit more concerned just in the sense that he was banged up going into the development camp and couldn't make it on the ice, and now it's basically a month after, and you're still
Well,
banged up.
it
That's a little bit more concerning to
it
me than the
it
fact
all
he's not playing.
it also could be just because he's gonna be on the team. You know what I mean? Because he was on the
That
team
too.
last year,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
but
like, why even risk
why go
re-injuring
to
the
this
groin?
camp? Well, yeah, why go to this camp when you know you're probably going to potentially
Right.
make the NHL or
That
your
was kind
goal
of
to
my
make the
thought.
NHL? Yeah,
But you might be right.
I just hope he's not actually like hurt, and the
Well,
reason why.
groins are tricky, right? They like you can re-injure them,
Well,
even if you're better.
it's just a sensitive area.
Yeah, as we know.
Yeah, but it's more like it's not about. I think it's not about the re-injury, but it's more about the fact that any slight little tweak, it could even be a new injury, and it's based on the fact that it's like compounding, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of things going on. You can have groin turn into a hernia. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
all kind of connects. So maybe it's more
Well,
just precautionary for him.
I think again, I'm like more disappointed that Jack Nesbitt didn't get a chance to be here because I think he does belong here. But it does show how spread out the opinions of Nesbitt are. Where
For sure.
some
Um,
scouts have him really high, and then other scouts have him like
It
kind of in
it
that
doesn't
other tier.
but it doesn't necessarily mean that he won't have a chance. Like there's
True,
been guys in the past that
true,
they weren't named to this camp and ended up making the team because they had a
sure.
killer first half. So
Depends on the season. Yeah, great,
I
great
think
point.
that's the bigger thing. Like obviously if you get invited to the camp and you do a great job, that's probably going to put you in good standing, even if maybe your first half is a little lackluster in terms of like junior
Yeah.
hockey wherever you're playing. But I think if you don't make it, you have to really have a killer first half, or else you're not going to be even close at
I
all. So
mean,
really for Nesbitt, he's going to have to impress, and even then, it might be a long shot, but he's going to have
sure.
a first half to contend or
And
challenge.
and let's be honest, he's not going to be in the NHL next year. So he has a chance to play on it next year as well.
Perhaps,
Because even
yeah.
even if he does, let's just say the Flyers bring him into the AHL and they use that exemption rule for him. They won't need it for Martone. But let's say they use it on Jack Nesbitt. Even if he's playing for the Phantoms, I could see them sending him over to play in this tournament, regardless.
Oh, definitely.
If
If he's
he's
playing for the Phantoms, for
if he's playing
sure.
for the
Yeah.
Phantoms, right? Like if Luchenko makes the Flyers, there is a chance that they would send him over to play the World Junior Championship. But I think if they're considering that, they're just going to send him back for another year.
Uh,
But I will say, I was telling you this through text. I was watching footage of Luchenko. Again, I know I'm going to be in the outlier in this, but I was watching like Luchenko and Porter Martone footage, and I'll just say, like, I don't think Porter Martone is ready for the NHL. I do think Jet Luchenko is. Just his awareness, his ability to skate, his physical maturity. Where I still see a higher ceiling for Porter Martone. Don't get me wrong, but I'm like, man, that guy just needs like another 15 pounds of muscle, needs to get like a little better on his skates, but like the star power is obviously there. That's without a doubt. It's just like it's so in his best interest to just give it a little more
well,
time, and probably
yeah,
halfway through the year he's going to be NHL ready.
it's the best development path for him, like we talked about
Yeah.
last week. Like the NCAA makes the most sense for him. I think it's just something you have to um take into consideration with these prospects, even though he was a top 6 pick, even though he's a really high pick, super talented. Just because you are that talented doesn't mean you can necessarily step right into the NHL and be effective or have it be the best place for you to like you know actually develop your skill set, work on your game in an efficient manner. Like there's only a handful of guys that can really step in, be effective, and still continue to develop, efficiently. And that's like a McDavid, a Bedard,
Well,
like guys that are outliers, right?
yeah.
I think Martone's a really good player, but he's not to that level yet. So that's why
Well,
the NCAA makes the most sense, at
yeah,
least in
well,
my
I
opinion.
also think with this new rule change, like some of these guys, like maybe even a player like Bedard might have taken advantage of the college route where like Bedard's like not small, but he's like, he's slightly undersized. He's like James Hagen's, size. And it's like some of these guys might be better off, like even if they are able to play in the NHL, like maybe they're better off long term taking that extra year, getting stronger before they come into the NHL. And you reference Martone getting like kind of rocked by a hit, being a little physically stronger in the NHL, the hitting is going to be even tougher, right? Like,
Yeah.
so like the physicality ramps up so much that I think it's worth it for pretty much 99% of players, unless you're a McDavid, like you
That's what I
said.
mean. Unless you're that
And
elite tier, that's kind of the
yeah.
1%. Like most guys are probably better suited to take that extra year of
Yeah, and
development.
I think that was Celebrini's benefit too, is that the fact he came from college, got to bulk up, played against stronger players. I love
Prepares you. It
Celebrini. Right.
prepares you
Yeah.
a lot more than when you're, playing in the CHL against guys that are 16, 17, 18 versus playing against guys that are 23, 24,
Yeah.
25. Like those guys are a lot more physically mature. It's a lot closer to NHL conditions.
Yes.
So you're a lot, I would say you're a lot more accustomed and ready for what the NHL environment's going to be like versus if you jump into it straight out of the CHL, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, for
And look at
Martone,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
best case scenario. That's all I was gonna say.
Yeah, no. And look at Mitchkov, right? Like he spent an extra year in the KHL. It probably was the best thing for him. One, he was already playing against men as a teenager. And but also got more time to get a little bigger, a little stronger, and he still physically was, I wouldn't say he got bullied around, but like he didn't have the conditioning that he needed to be in the NHL yet. Now he's got to work on that, right? So there is always a benefit to these guys getting a little more physically prepared. So, and that's where I think a guy like Luchenko falls into the Celebrini camp. He's not as talented as Celebrini, but he does have that same physical maturity. He managed to gain that in the OHL. I think it's actually in his benefit that he's playing in such a bad team. People might disagree with me on that, but the fact he has to be the man every single night, I think it makes it a little harder for him. I think it brings down a lot of his production. Where some of these other guys are putting up much larger points or playing on like super teams, right? Like I heard the Robert Thomas comparisons lately to Luchenko. Robert Thomas, like when he put up much better points in his draft plus 1 year, that's because he was playing on the London Knights. When he played for the Hamilton Bulldogs, he was like just over a point a game. So it also like there's a lot of trickery. And again, Luchenko got time in the AHL already, played through a grueling playoff run. I think there's, all of that really helps. And we saw that with Bump's decision, right, to get some time in the AHL to prepare himself for the NHL. So I think these are smart moves by the Flyers, and I think a guy like Jack Nesbitt is going to need time, but I would like to see him playing against the best. So hopefully he does have that big, draft plus 1 year, and does get added into this group because I feel like he would be like ideal as like a bottom six forward
Yeah,
on
shutdown center
Team Canada. Yeah.
type of role like that
But
for sure.
we'll see. Canada's so deep that it's just like I never take it personal when it comes with Canada. Like where would Heike Verhonen or Jack Berglund be on Team Canada,
They
right?
wouldn't be on the team.
Either they
So
wouldn't be on it or they'd be bottom six
yeah.
forwards there, right? So it was interesting to see Cole Reshny playing top line center for Canada, which I thought was pretty interesting because I really like Cole Reshny.
Yeah.
But
Him and
again, this is
Martone together.
yeah, but this is also a league where size doesn't matter as much. I'm starting to like at the more I study like the prospects and the young players coming up, there's just different rules for levels of play of what you can get away with, how
Oh,
players, right?
1000%.
So
Yeah.
it's like I feel like there is a big
There's so
misconception
there's so much
online.
stuff. There's so much stuff that you can do in the CHL in terms of handling the puck, dangling, taking that extra second and holding the puck where if you took that extra second in the NHL, you're either going to get hit or somebody's going to take the puck and go the other way. Like there's just such a speed difference and like level of pace difference between the CHL to the NHL. It's crazy. And then in turn, there's even that difference, in my opinion, between the CHL and the NCAA,
Oh,
and that's and
definitely.
that's why I would say it's beneficial for a lot of these guys to go to the CHL, go to the NCAA as like a next step in their development, then make their way to the NHL because you kind of get almost adjusted to the pace of play or how the pace will increase by going that route, right? Because
We
you get one slight increase, you kind of accustom yourself as a prospect to okay, this is
yeah.
what it's going to be like a little bit in the NHL, so you're a little bit more prepared. Then you make that final jump to the NHL, and you're like, whoa, the pace is even higher, but at
Yeah.
least I could play at a pace that was slightly below it, not three notches below it, which is what the CHL
Yeah,
essentially is. So
especially if you're playing like in the queue or something. I imagine like we might even see Jack Nesbitt if he doesn't get the exemption status, assuming he's not ready. Maybe he'll go play in the NCAA as well. That like
possible,
that's
yeah.
possible too. So,
I think a
I,
lot of guys might take that route
I
just because
yeah.
think about it's not even about your development now, but it's also about the fact you can get paid. So
Yeah. Oh, that 100%. Yeah, everything's about to change when it comes to that. You're 100% right. It's actually a fantastic point. Because like everything's going to change in the development process because of this, and a lot of players are gonna where maybe they would have been rushed into the NHL a little bit early. Now they're going to be taking that extra year in the NCAA,
well, they're
which
like, hey, I can go to the NCAA. I can first of all get some sort of an education if I'm interested in doing that, which
sure,
most of these guys are not. Probably,
right?
let's be realistic with that. But it's not even about that. It's about the money, I think, right?
Yeah, the
Because
money, the
but, but
lifestyle, ability to gain weight.
beforehand, you would have went to the NCAA, and you're not getting paid really whatsoever at all. So it's outside of any sort of sponsorship type of thing.
And
So
it'll probably be the best league of the junior level, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the only player I can think of like in the Flyer system that probably is physically ready for the NHL today, but his game is not ready is Shane Van Sage.
Well,
Like I
he's
imagine
just a big
that guy,
guy.
yeah, I imagine that guy physically probably could go in the corners with NHL players today and not miss a beat. You watch what he did at development camp and how much stronger he is than everybody. And again, that's why he got taken so high. And how much that matters at the next level. So, okay, another piece of announcement. This is just more pure excitement. I think this is like our go-to date when we can officially say hockey season is back.
Yes.
The Flyers did announce their rookie series. It'll be September 12th and the 13th. That's going to be really, really exciting. It's obviously the Flyers are going to be playing rookie games against an opponent. I'm not sure exactly who the opponent is. I don't think they announced that. Maybe I missed it, but typically it's like Boston or New York or
I think it might be the Rangers. Yeah.
yeah, it's the Rangers. I feel like of late it's been the Rangers. Could be the Islanders or something in the end, but it's somebody real close by. Could be the Capitals, somebody within short driving distance. But that should be really awesome. Majority of the players that we listed are probably gonna be, or at least some of those players are gonna be included. But like Porter Martone will not be part of that. He'll be at college at that point, but maybe Luchenko will be part of that. Maybe some guys in the OHL, but there's a slew of young players in the minors that are going to be rookies this year. So it's going to be an interesting game, regardless. Opportunity for guys like Denver Barkey and Oliver Bonk to shine. It should be a pretty interesting series, and the Flyers do have a pretty good minor league team right now, at least on paper. And obviously, it's going to be an opportunity for John
Yeah,
Snowden to lead that group.
yeah, it'll be interesting. And just to add, the two games will be against the Rangers prospects.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they announced it. I forgot to look it up. But that makes sense. I think they've done the Rangers the past like 3 or 4 years in a row, if I
definitely the
remember
past
correctly.
two or three.
Yeah,
My memory's a little foggy beyond
same.
that. But yeah, one thing that's a little bit unrelated, but I figure we might as well mention as a piece of news. The Flyers released today that they actually have helped raise over 1.3 million for Flyers charities in
Cool. I
2024-25.
didn't
So
know
that was
that.
a press release from the team today.
Nice.
That's just really cool for the community, right? Like it shows that the Flyers are very involved. I imagine a lot of that is like Ed Snyder, Hockey Foundation, all that stuff, which is super cool, man. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of kids that want to play the sport of hockey, but it's very expensive to play. There's a lot of kids that are really talented that don't get the chance to
Yeah.
try their hand at it or to play. So it's cool that they're involved like that in the community, and they give these kids that might not have the chance otherwise to get on the ice and actually try their hand at the sport, right?
Yeah,
So
and
I think it's
and
really awesome.
Philly proper doesn't have a lot of hockey. A lot of it comes from like the outside suburbs, which is like typically middle class, upper middle class, and then South Jersey. That's primarily where all the hockey spaces are. So it would be awesome to get more in Philly specifically. So we'll see about that. But I imagine that the change of Penn State could make its way in, just growing the game in Pennsylvania with Penn State becoming, a premier team now, Gavin McKenna, that might help kind of
Yeah,
increase the amount of hockey rings in Pennsylvania in general. So,
hopefully.
yeah, because PA is not that bad with hockey. In general, PA is pretty good, but Philly is primarily like basketball focused, football focused. I'm hoping that that'll change because yeah, there could be star athletes there that never star hockey players that never would put on hockey skates, never
Yeah,
even
and
know
just
that they like hockey.
never got the chance, right? Just like
It's
at least
expensive, like you said.
but it's expensive, but at least like the way I look at it is if you never try, you never even put those skates on, how do you know if you even love the sport or want to pursue it, right? Like some of these kids might put those skates on and be like, "Hey, like I was really good at basketball or played football, but this is cool, man. Like I want to try this," right?
Right.
So,
Because like an athlete, a lot of times, and you see this in like, what's the name of that guy who was taken in the first round, end of the first round, who's a star
oh, I know what you're talking about.
quarterback? West
Yeah,
was his last name, I think.
Mason West, maybe. I
Mason
don't know.
West. I think it was Mason West, but he's like 6'7" or something like that. Big monster guy
He
who's
was
like
a quarterback as well. Yeah.
yeah, he's like a star quarterback for his team. There's a lot of these guys who they're great athletes. And I think Austin Matthews was in that camp too, where I think he could have played football as well, or
Yeah, yeah.
maybe it was baseball or something.
So
I
yeah,
can't remember
it
exactly.
was Mason West, and he was a guy that he played
He still is.
quarterback.
He still is.
I'm not sure what team it was, but
It's
yeah.
in Minnesota, I believe.
Okay. But either
Yeah.
way, like there's a lot of that, right? Where there's two sport athletes like that.
Yeah.
So
And
definitely interesting.
again, these highly athletic people, like you can give them any sport and they're probably good at it. You'll want to get them trying hockey, you know? And if it's like an inner city kid who like only has a basketball, like I have a basketball court right outside of my house here. Like if there's a hockey rink, like how many kids will start playing hockey? The game is growing. It doesn't seem that
Yeah,
way because the other sports are so much bigger, but hockey is growing, especially around the world. So we're probably going to get more of that as we move forward.
which is awesome.
Okay, just a reminder to please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell for notifications, get notified when we release these episodes. And for the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes, give us a rating and a follow as well. Okay, this will be pretty much the last segment of the show, but I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to talk about center depth within the Flyers. So for those of you who are not aware, maybe didn't see the episodes where I pulled this up, kind of made an internal depth chart for the Flyers based off of Vasili and I's opinions. Again, expect some of this to change. I can't see all the names kind of staying the way it is. But I wanted to look at the center position. It's such a contentious position for the Flyers as far as what we have. And, can any guys convert to center? Can any guys, maybe some of these guys won't even stay center as the season goes on. But if you look at the list, and I'm going to just run down the list from NHL to AHL to juniors. Again, the juniors players or non-NHL players are in blue. The Phantoms players are in purple, and the Flyers players are in orange. So as of right now, again, this is an early assumption. Our depth chart goes Sean Couturier, Trevor Zegras, Noah Cates, Christian Dvorak, Jet Luchenko, Rodrigo Abels, Jack Nesbitt, Carson Dorwart, Jacob Gauthier, Jack Berglund, Heike Ruhonen, Matthew Gard, Cole Knuble, Massimo Wisdom.
Rizzo. I was about to
Let's
say
change that.
Massimo Wizzo,
Yeah.
but oh
Massimo
man.
Wisdom. Massimo Rizzo, J.R. Avon, Nathan Quinn, Owen McLaughlin, and Ryan McPherson. So those are the names out there. An outlier to that list could be a guy like Denver Barkey, who has some experience playing center, but again, with his size being a generous 5'9", um, there is a chance that he will never play center at the pro level. There is a chance he might get tried at center at the AHL level this year. We will see, but I imagine they have him penciled in as a winger. And then Jack Murtagh as well had some time as center, but is primarily a winger. Oscar Eklund has also played center position over in Europe, but I would assume that his primary role over here in North America will be a winger, or yeah, a left winger here. So I think was there anybody else who could play center? Yeah, the only other option, Tyson Forrester had some times. I think it was in his very beginning of his junior year and prior, he played some center again, probably because of his size. I think he found his optimal role as an NHL winger. I don't expect that. And then there has been, Matvei Michkov played center in preseason before coming over to the NHL
Yeah,
for
Ska.
For Scott St. Petersburg. He is probably the only player that I would consider of the names we listed to really try him at a pro level as a center, but that probably will never happen. And I don't know if it should actually happen, considering, there's nothing wrong with having an elite winger. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Especially
and
because he's not
that's
an amazing two-way player, also.
well, that's his natural position as well, right? So like when you
Right.
take a player out of his natural position, not to say that he couldn't do it, you're just always putting him in a situation where he might not be as comfortable, right? So there might be just that extra second he takes to hesitate because he's in a position on the ice he's not as familiar with. So
Yeah.
that's my only thing with Michkov and why I would hesitate. Also, just the fact that now that you brought Zegras as the center, now that you brought Zegras in, sorry, the center depth actually at the NHL level isn't as bad,
As it
as it
was.
was, right?
Yeah.
So I'd imagine they're going to want to give Zegras his fair shake.
Yes.
So I'm sure that's going to be what a lot of the season is about pursuing, just seeing, okay, what does Zegras look like at center in our system and kind of buying into what we want to do on the ice, right? Into our, philosophies and things like that. When you just look at the guys that could convert to center, I mean, I think Barkey's an obvious pick. Like he obviously played center in the past. Why wouldn't you try him there?
I
I
would
think if
try him at
I
the
think if
AHL
you're
level.
I think if you're the Phantoms, there's nothing to lose. I would start the season out with him at center just to see how he adapts, if he's effective. And if he's not effective, I would continue to play him there as a coaching staff and just try to point out to him, okay, these are the certain areas we see you at center in terms of like, oh, you're missing this coverage. You're not dropping back enough into the into like between the circles to help your defenseman out. You're not kind of being that guy in the middle and being that option to help your defenseman break out, or like being at least an option to try to confuse the defense at least, or like a decoy. So there's certain things, right, that maybe he might not be great at off the bat, but like they can maybe teach him and kind of help him progress his game into a center at the pro level. So I would just say try it out with him because he's had prior experience there playing center. Why not see if maybe you can make him into a center, not only because your center depth can probably take another addition, but having a player who is a center over a winger is just ultimately more valuable down the
Yeah.
line. So let's say you effectively turn him into a center and you want to trade him in 5 years, that'll net you more value on the open market than if he was a winger. So
Yeah.
just from a pure value perspective, it makes sense to me. Murtag as well. Those are the two guys, right? And I know it's a simple line of thinking, but hey, they played center before. They have some familiarity with it. They've obviously done it in the past. So why not try to take that familiarity, those past experiences, use it to their advantage and see maybe if they can develop into a center at the lower levels, right? So I
Yeah.
know Murtag obviously is going to be at college. I forget exactly what college he's committed to, so I'm not too sure.
Isn't
But
it oh no, I forget it as well. Let me look it up.
yeah, let's see here. I'm not too sure.
It'll say
Uh,
it on Elite Prospects. I was gonna say Western Michigan, but that's Van Sagi, Boston University.
okay, there we go. Yeah. So that I mean, who knows if BU and like what their center depth is like? Obviously, they have a strong team usually every year, so we'll see. But maybe if BU
Maybe.
tries him at center and he has success, the Flyers see that and are like, hey, like, maybe this guy's more of a center than a winger. But we'll ultimately see what BU does with him, right?
Well, considering I think McLaughlin right now is their number one center, he probably will graduate at the end of this year. He might end up Sasha Boyer might be their number one center this upcoming
Probably. Yeah.
coming year. Also, I didn't realize Carter Amico plays on that team as well. Or he's gonna be playing on that team as well with Murtag. So that's pretty cool. The two teammates going over there together. Damn, they're gonna have a big D. They have Amico and Wang.
Yeah, it's pretty
Both guys
huge.
are, I think, are 6'6", big dudes. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. The one thing I will say, you kind of look at Carson Dorwart to Cole Knuble. These are kind of like your surefire pro
Third
players.
third line type of guys.
Yeah, it's like a lot of third line, fourth line guys. I think
Though,
Berglund. Let me say this real quick, and then I'll let you cut me off. Uh, Jack Berglund, I think, is severely underrated by our community. I think a lot of people have already tagged him as like this is a bottom six forward in the NHL. I'm not convinced of that. And I think people jump too much on the skating thing and go, oh, he's not an elite skater. He's definitely not going to play in this role. I will just emphasize this over and over again. When you draft a player, you're drafting a mold. He has 3, 4, 5 years of development ahead of him. But I think the tools, the size, the playmaking, he probably projects to be a third line player, but there is a world where this guy could develop into be a true middle six
60,
forward.
yeah, 60 points, shutdown center, can give you the offense, but also real big and can be a
Yeah,
pain to play against defensively down the middle, good at faceoffs. Like
sure.
I think if you look at, in my opinion, you look at Dorwart, you look at Gaucher, you look at Berglund, you look at Ruhonen. I think that Berglund and Ruhonen, the fact that they're playing top line roles like right now, with the WJSS, which means they probably will play top line roles at the World Junior Championship. Like that
Hmm.
cannot be understated, right? Because look at guys like Gaucher and Dorwart. Like, despite the fact that they're, going to be pro ready, like Dorwart has a little cup of coffee, Gaucher played in the AHL. They were not guys that are playing like top line roles or anything at the lower levels and things like that. So
True.
I just think when you're put into a
Very true.
situation as a player and you're used in that top line role, you end up getting relied upon so much that you develop so much of your game because of that, right? Because you're just in all situations all the time.
Hmm.
You're always just doing so many things on the ice. It helps you develop those little aspects of your game even more. So for Berglund, Rahonen, I'm really excited just to see kind of what happens with them this season and kind of the progression that they're taking. But I think another thing with Berglund that's understated too is the fact that he's played with men the last 2 seasons,
Yeah.
and nobody's really mentioning that either.
Right.
The fact that he's going to come in and essentially be pro ready because he's playing against men or has been, in the SHL, right? Whereas guys like Dorwart, Gaucher, like obviously they were playing, like Dorwart was playing in college, but that's not necessarily the same level as the SHL, right? So
Yeah.
that's the way I look
I
at it, but we'll see how these guys develop.
I think like the way people talk about Jack Nesbitt is how I view Jack Berglund, and I view Jack Nesbitt as a higher tier player, which I can understand a lot of people don't, but like I don't like I notice people talk very highly about the upside a lot of these guys being third line players and middle six players, and then Jack Nesbitt's kind of like, well, he projects to be a third line, fourth line player. I don't see that. I see a guy who does project to be a top six forward in the NHL. So I really just see those two guys though, which is an issue for the Flyers. Not in the future, but as of right now, only having two guys who neither one of them project to be um, like 95 point NHL centers. It does make me realize, like, I was actually thinking about the Minnesota Wild and why the Wild aren't better than they are,
They don't have
right?
any good centers.
Well, it's not just that. Well, that is a problem for them. They have good centers. They don't have great centers.
Well, they don't have a center that's on the level of a Kaprizov. Let me put it that way.
Right. And if you look at the Flyers system right now, that is kind of, like Minnesota has Matthew Boldy. Okay, well, we have really good wingers. They have Kaprizov and Boldy. We have the wingers that are going to project to be, star players in the league. But they never made that big move. Hey, ironically, the only time they ever did was under Chuck Fletcher, where they brought in Parisi and Suter, right, through free
Yeah.
agency. But they never they have Brock Faber, like they have so many good players, but they never hit that next level. And I'm like, this is something the Flyers need to avoid, right?
Yeah.
Is not being too married to their depth. Make a legitimate package, and when that player, that Jack Eichel, is available, there will be
Pull
another
the trigger.
opportunity.
Yeah. Pull the
Pull
trigger.
the trigger and bring in an elite guy,
Well, Yariv,
and
yeah,
sacrifice your depth.
I would say look at the right wings. That's what I look at. Look
Okay,
at the
right
right
wing's
wing.
crazy.
That's what you subtract from to kind of get that center in, right? Like and
Yeah,
build that package. You have so many right wingers. You have so many NHL ready right
and
wingers.
and right-handed defenseman.
Yeah, that too. But I would just say, yeah, look at your right wing depth here, and I think when the Flyers do end up putting that package together and the time is right, I think a lot of it will probably draw from right wing, just because if you look at the overall depth chart, that's just where they're the strongest. So if you're looking at how you're going to manage your assets, how you're going to turn certain assets into value for yourself, if I'm Briere, that's what I'm identifying. Where are we the strongest? At right wing. So where will we subtract? Right wing, right? Subtract from where you're the strongest to add to a position where you're a little bit weaker. That's what I look at. Obviously, you need two parties to tango, right? You're going to need a team that's
Sure.
going to want some of the right wingers that you're selling, but I'm sure there will be at least somebody interested, because if you look at the depth that the Flyers have at right wing, it's not like it's guys that are throwaways. Like they have guys down the list here that are pretty valuable players. Like
Yes.
all the way up to really Van Sagi, right? Like Van Sagi was a second round pick. Tuamalo was a second round pick. Like Martone, top 6 pick. Tippett, first rounder, first rounder, first rounder, first rounder. Like, so when you're looking at the right wing depth, it's a lot of high end type of guys, right? Really, it's where you hit Gendron, where it kind of you could say, oh, okay, it falls off a little bit potentially. But even then, I think there's still value in some of those players, like a Gendron, like a Wisdom,
Yeah.
Kaplan, Powell, Powell. So yeah, I just think there's so many right wingers that's what I am envisioning, that they're
Yeah.
going to end up packaging some sort of right winger with some draft pick and maybe something else and try to get that center
Yeah,
eventually.
it could be a defenseman included in that too. It could be a guy
Exactly.
like Bonk included in that trade, right? Eventually, the right wing thing is a little deceiving, right? Because some of these guys play left wing in the NHL, like
Yeah.
Forrester and Tippett. But I think overall, just looking at your wing depth in
Yeah,
general,
pretty
to your
much.
to your point, right? And again, with a guy like Bump in there and Gabrankin and Barkey and Murtag, right? A lot of these guys are going to be kind of huddled in there. You don't need all these guys playing top 6 positions,
It's
right?
not gonna it's not gonna happen anyways. So
Right. So you got
naturally.
to be prepared. And this is what I think the Flyers, they cannot make this mistake. Like I wanted to go out and get Jack Eichel. Maybe it wouldn't have even been the right pick, the right play at the right time. But when those guys become available, you package and you get them, because you're not going to get them. You might get them through the draft. You probably won't get them through UFA, because they typically don't make it to UFA. So if they're available for the draft pick, this is why the Flyers needed all these assets. So I love all the depth, because think about it. You could, let's say Luchenko and Nesbitt are home runs, and let's say they are at the very least middle six as young players on your team, right? They're still young, right? And let's say Sean Couturier's career is kind of winding down.
Winding
Trevor
down.
Zegers
Yeah.
ends up being a winger, let's just say, right? Then at that point, you could shift Cates over the wing. You can shift Zegers over the wing. And if you bring in a legit number one center, and then you have, Luchenko, like a veteran, then Luchenko and Nesbitt and Couturier, and then you shift over Cates, like all of a sudden you start seeing a real playoff team.
Yeah,
So it
definitely.
really is important. And I think this is where Minnesota has gone wrong. Maybe now that they have that cap space, this is something they will look to do. And they have a slew of young guys, but you cannot miss that opportunity to separate your team. If that guy is available, yeah, you're gonna have to overpay.
Of
But
course.
but again, as long as you get that legit top line
Uh,
center, go for it.
Yeah, I just think the Flyers need to be cautious. Like they have a lot of prospects right now that have cachet and value around the league. We got to be reminiscent of what happened with Ron Hextall, right? They had a very strong prospect pool. They got too married to their prospects,
He wouldn't make
and
a
a
trade.
lot,
Never
yeah, a
never
lot of
did.
the. Yeah, well, yeah, a lot of the value of those players diminished over the years, and they were unable to do so at the end of the tenure because of
Right.
that. So for Briere right now, he's got a great prospect pool. He just needs to be wary of the fact that as the years go by here, the value of these guys, when the new draft classes come in, they're the new shiny toys, and the
Right.
value of the guys that were previously drafted, especially when they're not first round picks, but second, third round guys, they naturally diminish as the new classes come in. So
Especially if they don't
he
hit the NHL
exactly.
quickly and
So he
yeah.
just needs to be wary of that, and when he and make sure that he does pull the trigger, not to say soon, but when it makes sense. Because if you wait too long, we've seen in the past what that can do, where a lot of these guys lose value, and then you can end up making those trades that you want to make because you just aren't matching the value that some other teams might be, right? So
Right, because you
we'll
don't have the
see.
assets anymore, right? Like
They're
you
not
did.
considered to be those high
Right.
value assets. So they just got to be careful. But based on what they're doing in the prospect pool, I think they've set themselves up in a great position, especially for the following offseason, not to only make trades out of the assets they have, but also, you know, the cap space, right? Like you're going to be able to make that trade and add a significant amount
And
of
that
cap because
e-
you set yourself up. So it all plays in together basically.
exactly, and that's why I'm bringing it up, right? Like they're hoping Trevor Zegers can be that guy, and but if he's not, you know what I mean? If he's not developing to be that true number one center offensively, like that 90-point guy that you really need,
They might pull the
which
trigger on something else. Yeah.
yeah, but they have to. Do you know what I'm saying? Like he cannot allow it to like I've said this about we both have said this about Briere. He needs to GM the way he played, sneakily aggressive. And when those big moments come up, and he's proven to do that,
Yeah.
but not at that level quite yet. Like Zegers was a great trade, but like it wasn't for a franchise caliber player. But when that guy becomes available and he's not 33 years old, 34, when he's 28, 27, 26
26.
even,
Yeah, exactly.
go out and get him, even if it's expensive, because you will always be able to fill up the rest of your roster with the guys you drafted and other players around the league. But and I was thinking about like let's not be the Minnesota Wild, right? Let's not be, and they could get better. Like I like the Wild, right? But they have a lot of great pieces, and they're still middling, right?
Yeah.
And like Marco Rossi is great, but like he's not exactly what we're talking about either here. Like we all know what we're talking about, and that's why I use Jack Eichel. It's like you need that guy that can be the
Franchise
Claude
caliber
that
center,
that
basically.
Claude Giroux was for us. You
Yeah.
need either that guy on offense or on defense. If you can find a Kale McCarr, sure. But like they're so rare. Like maybe it will be Quinn Hughes in the end because of Taki. I'm not betting on it, but like somebody like that of
Yeah.
that
You need a
caliber,
game
French,
changer.
like
Basically a guy that
surefire
can
franchise player.
shift, well, yeah, on a shift by shift basis, that one guy that the puck's on his stick, it doesn't matter what point of the game it is, but with it on his stick, he can make that one game changing play to win your team the game. That type of player, basically.
Yes. And they're not going to be the only reason you win, but if you really want to be part of that annual cup contender conversation, you will
Yeah.
need that guy,
To be in
right?
the upper echelon, you need to have
Yeah.
those upper echelon type
He,
of players. So
yeah.
it's just
And
the case, right?
yeah, like we're gonna need him in one way or another. Even if Mitchkov is that guy, We
Well, you need more
need
than
that.
one. You need more
Yeah,
than one upper echelon player. So
agreed. But look at Minnesota. Like they have Kaprizov. Nobody denies that he's a
no, but I
franchise
said they
player.
need more than one, is what I'm saying. You
Yeah,
need
no,
more
no,
than that.
totally. But I even think about like Atlanta Thrashers back in the day. They had Heatley and Kovalchuk, both of them franchise players in their prime, right? 50 goal scorers. But they lacked a number one center.
Well,
You
yeah,
know,
you need
they
to be able
like
to unlock your wingers. So
yes, like I feel like that is so important. It's not the only way you can win. Don't get me wrong, they might be able to win without it. But if that opportunity opens up to find that guy, they got to jump on it and grab him. And it's got to be again a Jack Eichel like situation where it's a guy who's entering his prime or in the beginning of his prime and for some reason is available, right? Like something went sour, even like a Mitch Marner, but like that age, again, he didn't make it to UFA either, right? So hopefully they're ready for that in that time. And a trade means you don't have to compete for him on the open market, salary cap wise. So okay, I think we can end it at that. I was going to talk about Oliver Bonk, but let's push that to next week because um,
it's a
yeah,
slow time right now.
I could talk about it. It's kind of off topic anyway. Okay. Anything else you want to leave our audience with, my friend?
No, just it's a dead time of the summer. We know there's not a lot to talk about in terms
Yeah.
of hockey, so we just appreciate anybody listening to us during this period. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, the episodes are gonna be it might be a little longer with Jim Jackson on because he talks, and that's easy. And I really want to hear all of his opinions on the upcoming season. So we'll probably get into it deep. But other than that, thank you everybody for listening. Again, shout out to our sponsors, Jim Steaks at Fourth and South. Make sure to go get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim's. They have one of the best, if not the best, cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Shout out to Public Summit Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Go to them for your insurance adjustment needs. It will help facilitate the process between you and your insurance company. Make sure you get the best claim possible. Again, Public Summit Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Shout out to SportsSpider.com. They are our partners. They aggregate content from all over the internet. And our stuff is pinned at the top. And also just want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for notification. Get notified when we release these episodes. And for the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes and give us a rating and a follow. If you haven't done that so far, please do one of those things. We truly, truly appreciate it. And again, thank you, Vasili. Appreciate you as always, buddy. Appreciate you guys listening, and we love you. And remember, always stay gritty.